Hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation of OTF Connect's Effective Use of Google Apps for Education in the Classroom with Shadi Yazdan. Thank you all for being with us tonight. On behalf of Sirius Gurhan, who is the administrator and facilitator of the OTF Connects program, we extend our gratefulness to you for taking more of your own time, and many of you have been actually attending quite a few sessions, so we really appreciate seeing the interest in the program as well as just your interest in learning and taking more back into your classroom to do even greater things than you're already doing with your students. We're also thrilled to have Shadi with us tonight again. Shadi has presented through OTF Connects as well as at one of OTF summer conferences last year, and I'm going to just put up our map to show where we all are across the province tonight, and Shadi can tell us a little bit about herself and where she's located and get us going. If you encounter any issues at all with the technology, just let me know in the chat. If you happen to get bumped from the session, it will log you automatically right back in. You can always go back to the email and click on the link again if things get really rough. But right now I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Shadi.
Hi everybody. How's the volume? Is it good?
It's actually a little quiet, Shadi, so go ahead and turn it up.
Quiet? Okay.
Yes.
How's it now? Is it better now?
Yeah, that sounds good. How about everybody give us a green check mark if you can hear Shadi okay?
Can you guys hear me well? Good. Good, good. Okay, perfect. Well, hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm sitting in downtown Toronto overlooking the lake as I'm having this presentation with you guys. I work in York Region, so I do have a bit of a drive every day to work, but it's worth it because I come home to the city and I love it. I've been with York Region this is my 10th year. I'm currently a digital literacy resource teacher for elementary, so my job really entails supporting teachers in the integration of digital literacy in their classroom instructions. So I'm assigned to the area east of York Region, which is Markham area, and I have about 43 schools that I'm responsible for. It is a little overwhelming at times, but it's also really rewarding and lots of learning as well. So I'm really excited here tonight to talk to you guys about how to effectively use Google Apps for Education to support your students in their learning. Before I get started, can you please show me with a check mark if you are a Google Apps for Education board, so with a check mark to say that you are, and if you're not, just give me an X. Okay, so we've got two. So for the two that are non-Google Apps for Education users, three now. Are you guys, if you can just let me know in the chat what you guys use. Is it Office 365 or something else? If you can just let me know in the chat what it is that you guys use in your board. Okay, so Karen says you are, okay, Google Apps for Education. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. Now, again, using the check, if you believe that you are beginner, give me a check. If you are pretty experienced in your Google use, give me an X. Okay, so we're even. Some of us are beginners and some of us are advanced users. Okay. Okay. So thank you everybody. So for those that are beginners, Unfortunately, just the way the program is set up, I won't be able to show you the how-tos, some of the samples I'm going to show you, but I will be able to give you ideas of how you can use Google Apps for Education in your classroom. And unfortunately, I'm really sorry, I won't be able to take you through the step-by-step of how you'll be able to set some of the things up. But if you email me, I can direct you as to where you can go to get more information, because the Google community is so massive and it's growing so much every day, and there's tons and tons of resources on Twitter alone and even YouTube videos that really take you through how to do anything that you can think of within the Google environment. So it's very, very exciting, and there's lots of support out there. Okay, so the presentation I'm doing, there is a link to that presentation that was just posted in the chat, but I also have the shortened link in the presentation that you guys see right now that you can type and access the presentation after our session, because I do have some links in there for you that you can access and have this presentation with you and go back to it as you need to, okay? So Google Apps for Education. So one of my very good friends on Twitter, someone I've never met face-to-face, I've met him on Twitter, shared this recently on Twitter, and I had to capture and put it in my presentation. So I'm going to give you a moment to read this code. And one of the reasons why I have to say I had to use this code is that even though Google Apps for Education is an incredible tool and there's so much that you can do with it, at the end of the day, we still have to remember it's just a tool. The curriculum and the pedagogy and student engagement and learning is still the forefront of what we do every day in the work that we do in the schools. So we don't want to forget that. And you know what I always say with the teachers I work with, it is a great tool, but it may not be a great tool for all of your kids. It may work really well with some, but not for everyone. So we want to keep that in mind as we are going through and as we are discussing some of the neat ways that you can use this wonderful program in your wonderful tool in your classroom. I recently came across this really neat article on Twitter that talked about future skills that our students need and skills that our students need to be successful in the future. I go back to a presentation I went to where a presenter said that we are preparing our students for a world of jobs that we don't even know exist yet. So really the focus of what we do with our kids have to be really focused on the skills that we're teaching our kids. And these are some of the skills that are very important in the modern learning environment that we engage in. So global citizenship, digital literacy, communication, emotional intelligence, leadership, problem solving, teamwork, entrepreneurship. These are all skills that are extremely important right now, and skills that are probably going to be expanded as, you know, as our kids get older and as our world continues to change. So we just really want to keep these in mind, that really we can't move away from the way that the world is continuously changing. We can't say we're not ready for this, or we don't want to, you know, we don't want to try this out. We want to. We want to be able to open a world where our kids are successful, where they're leaving a positive digital footprint behind. As soon as I remember I read this article about the skills that students must have, the first thing that came to my mind are the skills that we concentrate on a daily basis with our kids. Now, just looking at the learning skills that we assess our students on, what connection do you see between the must-have skills of the future or current modern learning world and the learning skills? I know we can't really engage on a discussion together, but if you can maybe type a few things in the chat so that everybody can read and respond to each other's points, that would be great. So what connection do you see between the must-have skills, and the learning skills that we focus on. Do you see any similarities, differences? I'll have you just think about that. I know it's really tough to engage. So Angela says collaboration equals to teamwork. Yes, thank you, Angela. That's the first thing I thought about as well. In order to be a good leader, it takes a lot of responsibility. That's right. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Collaboration is communication. Yes, thank you. So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind and also think about the relationship of the skills, the so-called future skills and the learning skills that we teach, and why those learning skills are so very important as we move on, our students from kindergarten to grade 8 and then to high school, and how those learning skills truly does prepare our kids to be successful in anything that they do. So I like to start with, when it comes to Google Apps for Education, I like to start up with Google Drive, because I don't really think Google Drive gets as much of a praise as the rest of the Google applications. There's a lot of, there are lots that you can do within Google Drive that really sets up the way that you go about organizing your whole class and the way that you use Google Apps for Education with your students. Google Drive is a great place to start for documenting student learning. So if you are, any of you who are teaching FDK classrooms, primary classrooms, even grade 12 teachers, I think that this is a great way for you to organize your class by file folders and document some of the work that your students are doing, whether they've handed in an assignment to you via Google Docs, or if you, as you're walking around observing students, you took a picture of their work and you uploaded directly into your Google Drive. What I really love about Google Drive is the fact that you can actually download the app for free on any device that you have, whether it's an iPhone, Android device, tablet, and it makes assessment that much easier. You're walking around, you activate your app, you take a picture of the work that the kids are doing, and now it's directly saved into your Google Drive app that you can access later. And also a great way for you to share with the parents some of the work that the students have done. In addition to that, I know that a lot of us, I know in New York Region we've started our All About Me portfolios, and a lot of us, the teachers that we're working with, are using Google Drive for documenting student learning for the All About Me project. I know other boards are using different devices. I know some are using Desire to Learn and some are using other platforms. But I find Google Drive is very easy in allowing you to set up your classroom. I have a sample of a screenshot. This is from FDK Classroom. It's a sample that I created and share with teachers. So you have your main folder and then you can create subfolders. You notice how I only color-coded my assessment and parent folder. I actually did that on purpose because I found that I was going a little bit wild with all the coloring of the folders. And when I just color-coded my assessment green, it was, to me, it indicated go to this folder for assessment. And the red tells me stop. This is a parent folder. Be careful what you put in there because that folder is shared with parents. So within that folder, I have individual student folders that are shared with individual parents' email so that they can see what some of their kids have done in the class. In addition, so I've actually expanded that whole documenting student learning here for you so you can see it clearly. This is one way of just organizing your folder. So you've got your kids, and within each kid, I have a subject folder. I know it sounds a little overwhelming for some, but As you start playing in the environment, you're going to find what works best for you. What I'm providing you with are just a sample of how you can go about setting up your classroom, but I don't want you to feel like it's the only way to do it. You have to play around and figure out what way works best for you. Now, sharing folders with parents, I love doing this because it's a really great way for them to be part of what's happening in the classroom environment. The first thing that you want to do is when you create your folder, you give it a name, you click on the little head, the little guy I like to call it, with a plus sign, and then you put in the parent's email address. What I usually do in September is I send a Google form, which is like SurveyMonkey, to all the parents asking them for their email address. Now I found you have to be very careful. Majority of, if parents work for a particular company, majority of organizations, their email address doesn't really work when you want to share something with parents. So what I suggest doing is, I've noticed Gmail accounts work really well, Hotmail and Yahoo. But the other emails, I don't know why they don't work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I would say to see if the parents have a Gmail account. And if they don't, use their child's account to share with them, but make sure that that folder is marked as can view only. This is very important because if you mark it as can edit, they can take things out of that folder, modify stuff, and you don't want that. You want them to just see the kind of items that you're putting into the folder. Okay? Before we move on to Google Classroom, are there any questions about Google Drive? So that was just a quick little overview of how you can go about setting up your classroom and how to share folders with parents or other teachers if you wanted to do that. What would I share with the parents? Good question. So what I actually share with the parents is I'm going around, I take picture of some of the student work, and then I would put that into the folder, especially if the kids are in FDK. Some of the work that the kids have submitted via Google Docs, I would share that with them with all of my feedback and things like that on that particular assignment, just so that the parents can get a view of, what kind of work their kids have done. I'll even take a picture of the kids and share with the parents, because we are in a Google Apps for Education environment. That is a safe way that I can share images of kids. But I make sure that the pictures I'm sharing, only that parent is seeing their own child's picture and videos and some of the projects that they may have done. And no other student is in that video or pictures. Okay, so now we are going to move to Google Classroom. I'm not sure how many of you in your boards have access to Google Classroom. For our teachers in York Region, we all have access to Google Classroom, and our students have access to Google Classroom as well. Google Classroom is a really great way to set up your classroom, assign assignments, and give announcements to your students. The only downfall to Google Classroom, well, I shouldn't say the only, there are many downfalls because Google Classroom is still pretty new, and if you are comfortable and an expert in using Moodle or Edmodo or anything like that, you're going to be a little bit frustrated with Google Classroom. So be patient. Google is very good at modifying and advancing some of the tools that they have. And Google Classroom since August has improved drastically. There's still some downfalls. For example, you can't have two teachers sharing the same classroom. You can't have anyone outside of the Google environment accessing any of your files or folders or classrooms. For example, you don't have a special parent code that you can give to parents for them to see what their kids have done, which I really think Google needs to work on, and hopefully they will. To access Google Classroom, once you log into your Google Apps for Education domain, you can just go to classroom.google.com, or there might be an icon on your interface that'll take you directly to Google Classroom. Now, Google Classroom is great at organizing your class, and like I said, the announcement part is really awesome because you can just send a quick little announcement, start a discussion, or remind kids to bring their, if you're going on a trip, to bring their water bottle, particular outfits that they have to wear, whatever it is. It's a really quick way of sharing announcements. I used it a lot in the classrooms with the teachers I support in to just start a discussion. It's a really great way of starting a classroom discussion that you can also use as your diagnostic assessment to see where the kids are and what are their thoughts and ideas about a particular topic, or however which way that you want to give your announcements out. You can also assign assignments. I love this assignment part of Google Classroom because you can set the due date and the time and the title of the assignment and description. In the description, I usually put the success criteria so the kids don't have to go looking for it, but they can see easily, oh, so this is our success criteria. You can upload, if you have the assignment in your Google Drive, you can upload directly from your Google Drive, or you can attach it from, if you actually have the attachment on your computer, you can attach it that way as well. But I find that it works better when you go through Google Drive. You can attach a link if you want the kids to go to an external link outside of your Google Classroom. You can do that, or you can insert a YouTube video. However, I found the only thing with the YouTube video is if you have a personal Gmail account, if you copy the link of the YouTube video from your personal Gmail account, you will not be able to put it into the Google Classroom. Because Google Classroom only works with everything within your Google Apps for Education environment. So that YouTube video, you have to put it into your Google Apps for Education YouTube account. And if you don't have one enabled, then you won't be able to do it. So it's very strict, but also at the same time, it's a great thing because it keeps everything within your Google domain, and usually the videos that kids can access through their Google domain have filters on it, very strong filters. You click on Assign Your Assignment. The assignment is posted for the students, and the due date approaches, assignment isn't done. You actually get a note. You can see right on as you log into your Google Classroom how many kids have completed the assignment, how many kids haven't. It's going to highlight for you all the kids that submitted their assignments late. They'll still be able to submit it, but it will show you that the assignment was late. So when a parent comes and says, oh, but my child, submitted the assignment, you can go right into the Google Classroom and show them that, yes, they did submit their work, but unfortunately it was late, past the due date. And it times and date stamps every single assignment that the kids work on. So it's wonderful. And a great way to help you try a paperless classroom. Now it makes, once you've assessed and once you actually get an assignment, you can, there's a section that you can go to. You click on the assignment when it's completed. It will tell you, for example, here, this particular student, their assignment is late. You can even put a point to, you can assign a point to the assignments, but the points, I find they're very, there's only 3 options you have, either out of 100 or out of 20, which I don't understand that system, or out of 10. So that's how you can, I usually left this blank, to be honest with you. I didn't put any grade. You can use Google Classroom with any students, any grade. I've used it with kids as young as I was in the classroom supporting teachers, as young as grade 1. Of course, there's only certain things that they can do, but still it's a great way for them to get started. Okay. The students will see the grade. Yes, Victoria. When you assign a grade, they'll see it. Or if they submitted their assignment using Google Docs and you left your feedback, they'll be able to see the feedback, but students will see it as view only, which is, I guess, in a way, they can't change anything that you've inputted. Once the student submits their assignment using Google Classroom, they lose all ownership to that assignment. You are now the owner, so they can go back and edit their assignment. What you can do is you have to give them the ownership back again, or have the students make a copy of the assignment, follow your feedback, do a revision, and then resubmit it again. Which is really annoying, to be honest with you, but I think that Google is working on this, because I know a lot of teachers have complained about this and they're saying it's too many steps for the kids to go back and forth. Yes, students can also unsubmit their work and then be able to edit as they need to. But that's going to show. It's going to show that the work was submitted, unsubmitted, so it does keep a track of all the activities. But they do have a short time for submitting and unsubmitting. Okay. Okay, so yes, so the question is, if you give ownership back to the students, will you see their revision when they resubmit it? If they make a copy of that document, you will not. So the best way to do that is once the students submit their work, they have to unsubmit, but then you have to make sure you don't put any feedback, because as soon as it's submitted and you put feedback, you are now the one seeing that assignment. Kids can't edit or do anything with it. So I always have kids make a copy of it, follow the feedback provided, and then resubmit it again. Okay, so we are going to talk about Google Docs, which is probably the one aspect of the Google Apps for Education that you hear lots and lots about, because it truly is a game changer. Google Docs is, it can be as basic as word processor to an advanced computer programmer can use. There's so many add-ons that you can add to it. You can do everything that you do on Microsoft Word and more. But there are just additional add-ons that you can add to make it more advanced. Google Doc is really neat for assigning workstations, assignments, great for co-planning. When I was in the classroom, I was running a flipped learning model, and I really didn't have anyone in my school or in the board that I could work with. This was like 5 or 6 years ago, I believe. So my grade partners ended up being, there was one teacher in Singapore, one in Thailand, and I think there was one in California, and we used to co-plan together all the time, and it was amazing. It was all done through Google Docs. I was part of a pilot, Google Apps for Education pilot program, so it was great that I was able to do this with other teachers. It is a great way for students to actually practice and improve in all areas of learning skills. That whole, they're collaborating together, they're working independently, maybe they start their own Google Docs, so they're showing initiative. It's wonderful. Here, this little thing that I included here, I had one of the teachers I work with, she actually creates her newsletters on Google Docs, but her newsletters are created collaboratively with her students, and they share their newsletter monthly with the parent community, just letting them know it's kind of like a month in review of what happened in their classroom. So they have one of the kids that's the editor, one is the cartoonist, one is the sports reporter, and it's really neat the way that they put it together and they share with the parents monthly. Another way that you can use Google Docs, you don't really need to leave the Google environment to do any research. You can actually do research right within Google Docs. So if you are teaching younger kids and you're looking for a picture, you go into Tools when you open up Google Docs, you click on Research, and you can find pictures that are free to use, share or modify even commercially. How wonderful is this to teach kids to use pictures that they're legally allowed to use following the privacy laws and regulations. And then I had one of the challenges my grade 7s always had and complained were, well, Miss, whenever I click on free to use, there aren't as many options and as many pictures. And that was a great discussion that we would have about Well, if you don't find a picture that you're looking for, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to create your own, and the kids would go around using their own phone or cameras that they would bring in to take a picture to articulate something that they wanted to for their presentation. So you're teaching kids to become creators now, as opposed to I see it, I take it, I use it, I say it's mine. Great to do that. You can also, if you just click on the research here, you can research for any topic that you're doing, any research that the kids are doing, and there's a little button below here that this thing is covering where whenever the kids drag and drop any information from the research component, it will automatically cite it for them in either MLA or other citation formats. So it's really, really neat in supporting kids in their research. Does the research option exist when working in Google Slides as well? Yes, it does, and it works really well, exact same way. You can access it by going to Tools and Research as well. Okay. Revision history. Now you can use revision history in pretty much any aspect of the Google environment. I love revision history. Again, think of this, how valuable this is for your assessment purposes. Group of kids working on a document, you always have that one kid that complains and says, you know what, miss, I did all the work, no one else did anything, or I'm sorry, by accident, the work was deleted. Whenever you click on revision history, you can actually see who contributed what to what part of that document. You can do this within Google Slides as well. So any part of the Google environment you're in, you can always click on revision history to see who contributed to what part of that group work. So really great way. And I like to always start the year by showing my kids that, guess what, I can actually click on revision history and see who contributed. So it's really powerful. For my ELL students, they were always able to click on the language part as well and have the assignment that I shared with them translated in a particular document so that they would understand what they had to do. And it really was helpful and also great for me. I used to translate whenever I would put notices to parents, you know, tomorrow's snow day, you know, make sure your kids have their snow attires. I would write it in English, translate it in their particular language, and that way I could just copy it and paste it into my classroom website, and parents could see, you know, what was going on in the classroom and what kind of reminders were available. Oh, and there is a Google Classroom app. You can actually download it on your Android device or on your iPhone. And a lot of kids that I was working with actually a couple of weeks ago before March break, they were doing their assignment right using the Google Classroom app. I honest to God don't know how they can do it. I would go blind trying to look at that small screen, but kids somehow they manage and they prefer to work that way better than putting them on a big screen. So thank you for that reminder. Oh, so I did mention the translation, translate docs for ELL students. So that is in Tools and Translate Document. So this language component, you can put your document in a particular language so that you can read it, whereas this one allows you to translate the whole document. Okay. So I'm going to show you some sample of ways that you can actually use Google Docs in the classroom. This is a sample from my grade 7 class. I would get pictures from either the Toronto Star, or I would go on to you know, the free to use images and so on, or Creative Commons, and I would just put it into, I created a chart on Google Docs, put my picture and ask the kids, well, what do you see, why is it important? Really great little quick little workstation activity to encourage the kids to go beyond the obvious. Okay, so whenever I ask them a question of what do you see, I encourage them to use all their senses. And why it's important, I really wanted them to think of themselves as global citizens. Just because this happens, this is a situation that happened in the other part of the world, How does it connect to me? Just because it happens there doesn't mean that I don't have anything to do with it. It is still, I'm part of this global world. Remember the first slide I showed you guys about the skill of being a global citizen? This takes us back to being a global citizen. That is a skill that students need and should learn to develop. Some of the other activities, this was shared with me by one of the teachers I work with. See, Think, Wonder. Really great for the SSC or your ELL class, or even if you teach younger kids and you want to have them practice thinking outside the box or going deeper. Simple little picture, 5 things that you see. 3 things you think about, 2 things you wonder about. Really simple, really easy. I would share this with my kids as view only. They would have to make their own copy, write their response, and share it back with me. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. Another really great way of using Google Docs is for reading responses. So I would share an article with the kids that I found online. The reason why I would take that article and put it into a Google Doc is that the reading level was too advanced for the kids. I would either shorten the article or only take the most important aspect of that article, put it into a Google Doc, and share it with the kids. I always used to ask, this was my standard question. After reading the text, whatever the text was, what are your thoughts, opinions, questions, and what's the underlining message? This was really important. I really wanted kids to go beyond the obvious. What is the author saying without really saying? We talked a lot about biases in reports. We talked a lot about biases in media in general, and this was a way that I had kids regularly practice going beyond the obvious of what they were reading and really trying to articulate to them that whole notion of you really want to think twice about everything that you read. We don't want to believe everything we see and hear. And this was very powerful, especially for the intermediate kids. So how did I put this into a Google Doc? So I would write, I would just write this into Google Doc, copy the article, and then paste it within the Google Doc, cite where I got the information from, and then share it with my class. And as view only, and the students would have to make their own copy, and then they would write a response, and then share the response back to me. Does that make sense, Victoria? If it's not clear, please post another question. In addition, I shared a lot of so this was an activity that I did with a group of teachers. So again, going back to sharing news articles, one of the other activities that I engaged the kids in was I would share an article with them and then give them comment only option, and they would have to write a comment based on what they were reading. And the comments were, your thoughts, your feelings, any questions, words that are not clear, anything like that. And this way, I was able to see quickly by the comments that the students were posting who's having challenges asking questions, who's having challenges not understanding, who is just not clear, who do I need to support, and also where the kids were in terms of their thinking and based on the article that I was sharing. I didn't really share the same article with the whole class just because the kids' reading levels were very different. So I had a few articles that I would share with different reading level of groups. So with the ELL students, obviously their article was much more to their reading level. So the question is there a way that all students' responses could be shared in one document, similar to the earlier chat? So it could be this. You could share one article with the students or one question and have them all comment. And you can see as soon as they comment, their name will be posted, and if they have an image associated with their name, you'll be able to see that. You don't have to save anything on your hard drive. With Google, anything that you do, it's saved on your Google Drive. And you can access it anytime, anywhere with any device. That's the lovely thing about the world of Google, is that everything is automatically saved. Having said that, if you were ever to go back to Microsoft Word, you will forget to save things and you will lose things. So I don't suggest going backwards. There is a read and write add-on, and we're going to get to that later. And it is very similar to Kurzweil. Yes, it is. So we're going to come back to that and talk about that as well. Because Read and Write Google Extension app is wonderful because your kids who may not be strong readers but still want to read the same thing as their peers, they can have Google Read and Write read the particular article for them. And the great thing about Google Read and Write app is that it lives outside of the Google Apps environment. So if they go on to, let's say they want to read a Toronto Star article, it'll read it out to them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Google Slides. So there are a number of ways that you can use Google Slides, especially with younger kids. I use Google Slides to insert videos, YouTube videos, so that, you know, oftentimes when you're sharing a video with students, you have all of these little ads on the side and suggested videos that pop up. Well, this was my solution. This was a way that it helped me in terms of the videos that I shared with the kids. All they did was click on play, and the video would just play right into the Google Slide, and then they would usually have a response that they would have to do based on the video that they watched. This is a great way, especially with younger kids, to create, if you want them to create picture books, you can do it on Google Slides. Assign one slide per student and have them do their own little section. Or you can have a group, if they have a presentation that they're working on together, you can have each person be responsible for a different part of the presentation and put their own section within that presentation. Now think of Google Slides and some of the examples I gave you in terms of the future skills that students need and also those learning skills. Again, how wonderful does it work when it comes to collaboration? This is true collaboration, and if the kids are using it for the first time, they're going to get frustrated with each other. And this is where problem solving comes into play. Well, how do we make sure that everyone's doing their share of work? How are we going to divide the work? How are we going to divide the slides? Great lesson to teach kids. You can also insert images within Google Slides. And as mentioned, you also have that research component that you can use as well. Some of the other suggestions and ideas of how I've used Google Slide, which is Microsoft's PowerPoint, is I've done a whole, so when I was teaching grade 7, as you all know, Canadian history is not the most exciting history. So I was trying to think how I was going to go about teaching and making sure that the kids were articulating their learning in a fun and exciting way. So I decided to create an ABC book of Canadian history focused on conflict and change with my grade 7s. I brought in some samples of ABC books. I read it to them and they all got so excited and they wanted me to read ABC books all the time. And then I had them create their own on Google Slides. So 26 letters, they were in a group of 5. Each person in the group was responsible for 5 slides, one person had 6, and it was great. And the challenge was, well, what do you do if you can't find anything in Canadian history that starts with a letter X, Y, or Z? And that's where problem solving comes into play. Kids became very creative with their terminology, and it was fun. My grade 7s loved this activity. In the end, when they were finished, they had to share their ABC history book with the grade 2s and 3s who gave them feedback, because I told them that if the grade 2 and 3 students don't understand what you're talking about, your ABC book maybe needs to be edited further so that it's basic enough for anybody to understand Canadian history. So it was really great and very rewarding for the grade 2, 3s to be able to give feedback to the grade 7 and 8s. Well, in this case, grade 7s. Another really fun activity and really great is using Google Slides for reading response. Again, posting a picture and asking the kids, what's the message, why is it important? And having them write their response right into that Google Slide. So you can do this in a Google Doc, Google Slide, whatever that you're interested in. iPads and Google Slides, they don't really talk well with each other. You can view using your iPad app, your Google Slide app on the iPad, but editing is it's not where it needs to be. On an Android device, it is a bit easier. One of the other teachers I was working with, she uses Google Slide to do a whole week in review. So this is with her grade 1 class. So she writes down, so she does all the titles and then the students fill in the blanks. So each student has a different section. So she assigns for Monday, she has her Monday group, which is like 2 kids or 3 kids, and they write down on Monday we learned 2. They have to write down what they learned or find a picture to put here if writing isn't their strength. So it's a really great way to share with the parents what the kids have done in class. But if you're going to share a Google Slide with your parent community, again, you want to remember to share it as view only so that some of the work doesn't get changed or anything like that. I also use Google Slides for my lessons. I shared all my lessons with my kids. All my grade 7s had access to my lessons. I taught art when I was in the classroom, and the kids had access to the lesson and they could go to it on their own time as well. So learning goal was there, some guiding questions, and then I had some samples of, for example, this was a lesson on mosaic art, and I had some samples from around the world, and then I had them create their own mosaic art as well. So this is also really great way of sharing what you're doing in the class with the kids who may need that extra support when they go home, and the parents can also go through it with them as well to give them that extra support that they may need. Google Sheets, which is like Microsoft Excel or Spreadsheet. I use Google Sheets as my markbook because in elementary we still don't have a markbook program. I know that our secondaries in York Region have this phenomenal program, Teach Assist. We're hoping and praying that it's going to come to elementary. But yeah, so I actually used it for, as you can see, this was for my DRAs in my grade 7 class. And what I did, remember how I said Google sets itself up, there's a basic version, or you can advance it, make it more, do what you want it to do by adding the add-ons. I had a student in my class, a grade 7 student, very tech savvy, who actually taught me how to code and program Google Sheets so that every time I put in the number 3, it would highlight the cell for me in green. Every time I put the number 2, it would highlight it for me in red. So I could get a visual of where my class was in terms of their reading skills. So this was really cool. And it was really neat to have someone in my class teach me that. I learned so much. I always brag and say everything I learned from my grade 7 class. They were the most incredible teachers ever. Students, amazing teachers. They dig deep and figure out how to use programs the way that you and I would never think of doing. I also use Google Sheets, and I shared this with my whole class, and it became our visual math dictionary. So I would put in the word, and the kids would have to go find the definition in their own word, give me an example, and find an illustration. If they couldn't find it online, then they had to, some of them actually would draw it, take a picture of it, upload it, or find an example of that picture in our classroom, when they were outside, and so on. And then they would take a picture of it and upload it into our Google Sheets. So this was our math concept chart. It was amazing because it became our live math dictionary that we kept adding to. So it was a really great way for the kids to have something to go back to. And then I remember by May or June, they were actually putting in their own words as well. Google Sheets is incredible for data management. So if you're doing any data management units, you can have students put in their data, and then you can have Google graph it for you. There's an icon that you click on. I believe it's in File, Edit? No, I don't. I should have included where it is exactly, but it's a little picture. It's exactly the same place as you would find it on Excel, and it's the same thing. It's called Chart, and when you click on Chart, Google will chart your data for you. Now, Google believes it's smarter than you, so it says this is how it's supposed to be, but you can always go back and change it and say, no, this is not the kind of data that I want. I want a pie chart, or I want a scatter graph. However you want, you can do that. Now, if you don't have enough information, enough data, and you want to make it into a graph that doesn't really translate well based on the data that you have, Google will give you an error message and will not do it. Now we are going to go into Google Forms. Google Forms, think of it as SurveyMonkey or any sort of a survey program you ever use. Google Forms is powerful beyond words. I can spend a whole year just using Google Forms, and I will still have more ideas of how else I can use Google Forms. There's so much you can do in Google Forms. I love using it for student peer and self-assessment. I also had my kids assess each other in terms of their learning skills after any group project. So they would set up their own Google Forms and assess each other, and then they would have to share that with me as well so that I can see how they were assessing each other. Great way to keep record of your parent communication. So you can create a Google form, and anytime you call a parent, you can write down what was the date and the time, which is done automatically. Who was the student? Who did you call? Mom or dad, grandparents, aunt, uncle? Why did you call them? What's the next step? What were some of the comments that you created? So if you go into your Google Drive and you click on, if you are on the new drive, you're going to click on New, and then you're going to go into click on Google Forms, and and you can set up Google Forms and put in these questions. I know you're asking, someone is asking how you would do this. Unfortunately, I can't take you into Google Forms to show you how this is set up, but I can send you, at the end of the presentation, I have a whole bunch of video instructions and tutorials that go beyond and show you step by step some of the stuff that I'm going for you. And if you still can't find out how, please feel free to contact me, and I will find a how-to YouTube video and send it to you. Okay, and then parent-teacher conferences as well. Yes, you're right. So Jason just says you can add a picture to the form or a video, you're right, but not submit pictures through it. Yes, so students can't take a picture and submit it through Google Forms. Absolutely, you're right. It is a great tutorial for peer and self-assessment. You're right. So here are some of the samples that I've taken a screenshot of. In terms of learning skills, so we created this on Google Form. We created a scale type question. So for collaboration, what does that mean? And then some of the points. And this was actually created by one of my kids. And then they created a scale for themselves, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is very similar to the levels that we do as well. And this is how they kept track of where they were. Goal setting and tracking of learning skills was really big in my classroom. And on a regular basis, kids had to keep track of where they were and what area they needed to improve on. Here's another sample, collect info for sharing. Now this was when I was talking to you guys about in the beginning of sharing your folders, your assessment folders with parents or whatever it may be. You just create a Google form, you send it to the parents, what's your name, what's your child's name, do you have a Gmail account? If you answered yes, what's your Gmail account? For the parents that said no, I would give them their own kid's account number. like their student number and the kid's password, and say you can use this to access the parent folder, because it was shared with them as view only. Even if the students went into that, they couldn't really delete anything, even if they wanted to, because I shared it with them as view only. Google Forms, a really great way of learning new words. This was shared with me by one of the other teachers. You can have type in what the words are, any new words. I know that the teacher that shared this with me, she did new words. So every time the kids learned a new word, they would have to put it into Google Form, and at the end of the week, they create a Wordle to see what was the most common word of that week that they all came across. I also really like using a tool like Wordle. Whenever my kids did any writing activity, I always had them copy their writing activity, put it in a Wordle so that they could see the words that they kept saying over and over again. Because as you know, when the kids are doing their writing, they always repeat the same thing over and over and over again. How great is it for them to actually see the words that they keep using over and over again? And it's a great way for them to learn the power of using a thesaurus. And there are tons of online thesaurus that they can use. Google Forms again for reflective responses. So I showed you guys how you could do reading responses using Google Docs. You can actually do it right within Google Forms as well. You can set up your Google Forms where you should always start off your Google form with the first question is name, because if you don't put the name of the student, you're not going to know who submitted what. So this way the kids would know they would submit their name. Here's a video that they would watch. You can embed a video within a Google form, and what's the message of this video. Quick little, for me it was a quick little formative assessment to see if the kids are getting it, who's not getting it, what additional instruction needs to be done in the classroom. You can even put a picture here. It doesn't have to be a video. For the younger kids, if you're still doing reading logs, instead of doing paper reading logs, you can do electronic reading logs. Your name, what's the title of your book, who's the author, how many minutes did you read for, what page did you start and end on. Really great, quick way of gathering information. Great for collecting any data from your kids and parent community. Great for any type of survey you want to do with the staff or your parent community. Love it for brainstorming and word clouds. Anything you can think of. There's, like I said, you could easily spend a year only using Google Forms and you'll still come up with new ideas. So before Google Classroom, and this is how I collected assignments from students. So the kids would put in their name and then the link to their assignment, because I allowed my kids to use any tool that they found beneficial to their learning. And then, because they did a lot of creation projects, my kids were writing codes, they were programming, and so through the codes that they were writing, they were creating certain games and things online, and they would just put in the link to their actual project here and submit. So what I would do is I would get the results of all of the information that they shared with me, click on the link, and go directly to their project, wherever it was housed. Okay. Really great for observation. So I have a video that I've shared with you guys. It's in the resource section of this presentation that shows you how to create observational assessment so that you as a teacher, as your students are working, you create your look-fors, you go around the classroom as the kids are working, you check off what you see the kids doing, or create a rubric like this, and in the video it shows you how to set it up and put in your comments and your next steps. Come report card time, you take those comments and next steps, copy and paste it into your report card. You've got completely different next steps for every single student. So it makes your life easier. You have more authentic, real next steps, because who's going to remember what the kids did how many months and how many weeks ago? I do have a link to the observational assessment that I'm mentioning right now in the resource section that I'm going to show you guys in the end. So this is great for if you want to do quick little peer assessment, exit tickets, especially in the math environment, in the math classroom. You want to do, I used to do in my math program, I used to do an entry ticket where the kids would have to answer a series of questions as they came into the classroom, and they would answer the same question after the lesson. Because I wanted to know what the kids knew, and then what did they learn in the end. Okay, now going into Google Calendar. How are you guys doing? I know it's 8:30 right now. A lot of information. I do apologize if you're overwhelmed and your head is hurting at this time. There's lots to do within the Google Apps for Education world. I always say there's not enough time in the day to go over everything that you can do. I do apologize if I'm rushing through it. I just want to make sure that I can give you guys as much as possible. Okay, so Google Calendar. Again, thinking back to the future skills, I shouldn't say the future skills, I should say modern skills and the learning skills that we teach. This is another tool that really exemplifies the learning skills that we teach kids. Google Calendar, amazing for teaching kids to be good, to organize their time well and to make sure that they're managing everything that they need to do. This becomes very important for them when they go to high school. For some of you high school teachers that are involved in this session, you know what I mean. It's really tough for the kids to keep track of all the assignments that they have to do. And Google Calendar is a really great way of allowing them to do that. In addition, if you are responsible for organizing the technology in your school, this is a great way for you to create a sign-out equipment management system for your classroom to see where the equipment in the school is. Even in the classroom, I had a lot of technology in my classroom, so this was a way for the kids to sign out equipment that they were using. Great way to share assignments, special events. I actually used to put in a quick little overview of my day plans on Google Calendar, which I shared with my kids. So in case I wasn't there, if I was at a conference or I was sick, the kids always knew what we were doing. The kids were always part of my planning process. Every plan that I made, every lesson, every unit that I planned, it was in full discussion with the class because I really wanted my grade 7s to not see me as the teacher, but to see me as the facilitator and the co-learner with them. And they really love it. It changes the whole dynamic of the classroom because they really see themselves as learning partners with you. Google Calendar is also really great to share any resources that you can think of. Homework, activities, field trips. As an intermediate teacher, this is a really great way of sharing your Google Calendar with other teachers that teach your kids. So not everybody's assigning kids the same assignment on the same day. Do you know how many times that happens in the school? So this is a great way that you can say, okay, the grade 7s have a major assignment due on whatever day, and so the French teacher doesn't have an assignment due on that day as well. Okay? So someone just mentioned that they use Google Calendar for laptops, iPads, and smartboards throughout the school. That is awesome for borrowing them. Very good. Okay. So we are going to move into Google Sites. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say about Google Calendar, if your kids bring in their own device or have access to their own device, they can sync the Google Calendar within their device regardless of what they're using, whether it's iPhone or Android device, and they'll get notifications telling them, in 5 minutes you have this that's due, or you have this assignment due. So they'll get those little notifications. Again, really great for your kids that have organizational issues. Really wonderful in helping them organize what needs to be done. Google Sites is like your own website. I don't know how many of you have access to Google Site within your board. Within York Region District School Board, our teachers, we do have access to Google Sites, but it is only within York Region domain. That means if I were to create a Google site, I can't share it with you guys because you're not in the same domain as I am. So if you are a teacher in TDSB or Upper Grand, wherever you may be, if you're not in York Region, you will not be able to see my site. So a lot of our teachers, if they want to create a classroom website, they struggle with that because they can't share with parents. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because then you can have kids create projects on Google Site. You can have them at the end of the unit articulate their learning or put together a whole presentation using Google Sites. But, and then it will only stay within your board. No one will be able to see. But then again, like I said, you can't share it with your parents unless parent community has, they would have to log in with their kid's username and password to be able to see your Google website. I know of a teacher that I met. She's in California, I believe. She actually uses it to put her lesson plans. So she has her own Google site, and that's where she puts all of her lesson plans, unit overviews, and everything that she does so that she can access it. And she's organized it based on subject, based on grades, so that she can access it. Google Drawing. Many people don't really know about Google Drawing or have tried Google Drawing. This is another aspect of Google Apps that doesn't get a lot of love. So I'm hoping that we can give it some love tonight. So Google Drawing is really, I'm trying to think how I would describe it. I like to say it's like Microsoft Paint, but it's so much better than Microsoft Paint. So you can draw, you can create graphic organizers or mind maps, but don't think of it like Smart Ideas or any other mind map program. It's not that advanced, very basic. You can make things, you can have kids show their work, because they could put, if kids are showing their work in terms of, if it's counting, they can have little coins or whatever it is, they can actually put it in. There's a clip art that they can use, and they can put it in there into Google Drawing. Click on it and embed it into Google Drawing. You can create timelines and infographics. I was actually working with a primary teacher today. She was using it. It was the coolest way. I've never used it this way. What she did is she had her kids find a picture using, you know, that tool search, the research component that I showed you guys. So the kids would find a picture of an animal, and she would put it on a Google Drawing page. And then on that page, the kids would label the different animal parts, like the head, the neck, the body. It was really cute. The French teacher at the school got the idea from the primary teacher, and she started using it the same way in French, except now the kids had to label in French, which was a really neat way for them to use Google Drawing. I don't know how many of you know, but within the Google environment, there are actually lessons. There are teachers across the world that have developed lessons, and especially with Google Drawing, there are tons of Venn diagrams, mind mapping programs, infographics, and I'm going to show you, I have the link to where all these lessons are that you can access, and you don't have to create any of this. It's all available. You save a copy for yourself, and then you can access it. This was one of the other teachers. They did, this is within Google Drawing, and they were doing a whole unit on measurement, and this is how they were using it. Virtual manipulatives. You can create those within Google Drawing. Very basic. You can see it's very simple. Very similar to Microsoft Paint. So you just draw shapes, color code them, and then you can have, if you are trying to explain a concept to kids, you can even have them, you create your Google Drawing, share it with the kids, and have them use it as practice. Yes, you are able to drag the shapes around. So the next, is there any other questions before we go into Blogger? I'm going to give you guys a second or two. I do apologize for all this information overload. I know there's so much. I feel so bad. Okay. As you think of questions, just post them into the chat. Great. I'm glad you guys are not. You guys don't have a headache. That's awesome. Okay. So Blogger. Now, Blogger, I don't know about the way Blogger works in your board, but Blogger, which is Google's version of a blog page, Google calls it Blogger. For us in our board, it's considered outside of the Google Apps for Education domain. So for teachers to use this, they do need to have parent permission if any of student information is going to be on the Blogger. So student full name, their images. Having said that, oftentimes if the kids sign up for their Blogger using their Google Apps for Education account, their full name is going to be displayed. So teachers do need to be careful, and they do need to make sure they have parent permission to do this. Once you have parent permission, and when you do have your parent permission, Blogger is really great for giving your kids a reason to write because now they have an audience. You can create a Blogger that's completely private. Again, depends on what your outcome is. Or you can have a Blogger that's completely public, but in the profile, I highly suggest writing a little blurb about, I'm a student using Blogger to help me with my writing, so that in case anybody tries to, follow you, they'll know that, you are a student. In addition, I highly suggest if the kids are blogging, for them to moderate their comments. That is to make sure that they approve a comment before it gets posted to avoid anything inappropriate, because there are lots of scammers out there, a lot of advertisers and things like that, and you want to be careful. I see Blogger used more with higher grade students and even high school students, again with full parent permission. If you as a teacher want to use Blogger, it's a really great way to share learning with parents. You can use your students as guest blogger, and I actually did this. I was working with a grade 4 or 5 teacher, and she created the blog, and her kids were guest bloggers. So their name was not identified. They would sign in as anonymous and post as anonymous. And again, it's a really great way for kids to practice their writing, but then they're safe and secure, and also you're sharing with the parents what the kids are doing. Parents can just, as long as they have the address, the web address of the Blogger, they can access it. It is not protected within your own domain. Again, it depends on your board, so I highly suggest checking with your ICT consultants or coaches just to see what they recommend. For teachers, Blogger is really great in posting assignments, sharing news and videos, and also use it as your own professional portfolio of some of the great work that you're doing in the class with the students. I think it's a really great way of showcasing all the great work that you are doing. Okay, again, make sure no way any of the kids can be identified. No pictures, no videos of kids. Videos of maybe you doing an instruction, that's fine, but not of the kids. And I do have the little warning here as well. Okay. Now again, we are going beyond Google Apps for Education because I think these kind of components of Google are incredible. Did you guys know that you can actually, in Google, set up Google search? When the kids go outside of Google Apps for Education to do research, you can actually set the research for the kids to be based on their particular reading level. So anything that they're researching will be based on their reading level. I know. Someone said, wow, indeed, wow. It's pretty cool. The reading levels are US reading levels, which are a little bit different than ours, but still it's great if you just want the kids to just learn how the basics of research. You can even create customized researches. So you can find the links, you customize them for the kids, so you embed the links in a particular area and you send that URL to the student, so whenever the kids are searching, it only searches the websites that you approved. It's a lot of work, but at the same time with younger kids, it might be a good idea. I tend to like to open my kids up to go into the Google world because I really want them to be ready. I want them to know how to respond when they come across something that's not going to help them with their research. I want them to be able to decipher through good materials versus bad materials. I want them to know this site is a site that's going to help me and this is not going to. But Google reading level is really great. Someone just mentioned Google Scholar. I love Google Scholar too, but I find oftentimes the reading level is quite advanced for the kids. So if you're teaching high school, you might be better. Younger kids, I like to go with the reading level just because Google Scholar is tough to read. But again, really, really, really good tool to use. When you guys get access to this presentation that I'm doing, these are live links. If you click on this, it will take you to a website that gives you really good research tips. This will show you how to create a library in Google Scholar if that's what you want to do. Google Search, how to do Google Search, really neat tips and tricks. How to create a new search engine. This is the one where I was mentioning to you, the customized one. Maybe a good idea for the younger kids that you're teaching. Did you guys know about Google reverse image search? It's the coolest thing. You take an image, you put it into Google by clicking on the reverse image search, and it will tell you where that picture is from. It will take you to the link. So you can take a word, put it into the reverse search, and it will tell you where it is. I don't think the words work as well as images do. I've tried it with images, and it always works with images. I don't know how to do the reverse word search, but the images work really well. I don't know if you can use videos. I haven't tried. If you do, and you figure it out, do let me know. But the image one works really well. It's a really great way for kids to learn if this picture that I'm using, am I legally allowed to use it or am I not? Has the author given me permission or not? And if they forget to cite an image and they're worried, they can always do reverse image search. In addition to that, here is the gold mine, resources. So there are tons and tons of everything that I discussed with you guys. I went through and found you tons of resources, so much so that for the next 2 years you'll be good. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but there's just so much here that you can use and access. Google Docs, how to use the research tools for citing. You're going to love this. I talked about it really briefly, but you can actually go through this and see it. I learn best by video, so I share a lot of video with you guys. I love this video because before you even use Google Classroom and before you decide if it's the right tool for you or not, watch this video. What you can and cannot do with Google Classroom. Pretty neat because people think it's the end-all and be-all. There's things that you can do, but there's lots of limitations as well. And you want to be prepared before you set it up and you're like, oh, it doesn't work for this, doesn't work for that, wasted your time, and I don't want you to do that. Tons of Google Classroom tutorials beyond what I talked to you guys about. Google Plus communities. I don't know if you guys are involved or have joined any Google Plus communities, but the Google Plus Classroom community is extremely active. It's a group of educators across the world that are using Google Classroom. You post, if you have one question, you post in there, you'll have like 10 or 15 people respond to your question within seconds. Amazing. Anything you need to know about Google Slides beyond what I talked to you about and also some of the stuff I talked to you guys about, step by step, this is going to take you through and show you. Did you know that you can create flyers with Google Slides? I cannot tell you how many teachers email me because they want Publisher and we don't have Publisher on our computers anymore, and there are they're trying to find an alternative to Publisher. This is way better than Publisher. You can create flyers. You can do such incredible things with Google Slides that, that you wouldn't be able to do with Publisher. Creating interactive quizzes, stories, and games. One of my grade 7s did a whole Jeopardy game on Google Slides. It was amazing. You click on it, and the question came up, and then you would get prize based on, how you answer the question. It was the neatest thing ever. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Picha Kucha style of presentation. It's a Japanese way of doing a presentation based on 20 slides with 20 seconds of speaking time per slide, and each slide only has 1 word, 2 word, but mostly images. It is a lifesaver in a classroom where kids are pretty much reading off of their slide, that by the end of the class, you have the world's worst migraine. This is a really great way in teaching your kids how to do a proper presentation. This is my video, how to create assessment, observational assessment with Google Forms, how to set it all up. I did talk about that briefly, and some of you had questions about it. This 6-minute video will take you through exactly, step by step, how to set up your assessment. As you're walking around the classroom, and you can assess the students all the time, anytime, any period. You can assess your whole class. It's a really quick, fast way of assessing your kids. If you want to schedule parent-teacher conferences, how to do that, how to set it up, here's a video instruction on how to do that. And then what I was telling you guys about in terms of a lot of lesson plans and Google Drawing templates, they're all in here, all created by other Google educators, available for you for free to download and use as you want. I must warn you, if you are in your Google Apps for domain within your board, you might not have access to this, because some boards have, I've noticed they block this. So if you have a personal Gmail account, what I would do is I would download it with your personal Gmail account and then share it with your GAFE account. Just because the reason why your board account may not let you download them is because of security reasons. They don't want information to be sent out there into the Google world, which is completely understandable. That's why I suggest going through your own personal Gmail account and downloading the ones that you're interested in, because there's so many, and it's going to take you some time to go through them, and the majority of them may not work for you, but some of them do, like the Venn diagram that I showed you. It's pretty neat. Okay, so let me see what else I included for you guys. Yeah, that was pretty much it. The rest is not my presentation. Do you guys have any questions? Please post them or click on your mic and talk. Sorry guys, it was a little too fast.
I think we can give you the 5 minutes.